Shabbat shalom, brothers and sisters. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah. Before we start off, thank you so much for watching our channel. Um, we are working so much in so much production, not just for teaching, but also musical. We are bringing so many themes as far as songs in Spanish, Hebrew, which is coming very soon, like within days. English, of course. And we're trying to cover all bases as far as music. I've been wanting to do for a long time, but once again, the creator always have the right time for everything. And I truly believe that time for the music, it's literally today. So we are bringing so many themes in Hebrew, things that you already know of, and things that you might not know of on themes on music, but the algorithm, the rhythm that we are bringing as far as music is something very unique. To be honest with you, very Middle Eastern, because that's the way it's supposed to be. Not very Christian or Messianic, but very, very Middle Eastern, because that's the way our fathers were. And that's one thing we need to change our perspective. Now, we are going to bring today's parasha, which is the Parashat Wayesheb, and he settled. And we're going to go ahead and start off this Torah portion. Before we start, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so you can get the latest production. Let's start off. Parashat Wayesheb speaks about Yaakov and his sons, but ultimately we come and switch a little bit to the land of Egypt, where Joseph is, and that's where things are going to get interesting from now on. We just give a little glimpse how his life was and where he's getting to. Now let's start off with Wayesheb, chapter 37, verse 1 to 40, all the way 23. And Yaakov settled in the land, which is Wayesheb, where his father had lived as foreigner in the land of Canaan or Canaan. Look at what it says here. Before we start off, let's have a little preview of what the past was. Genesis 35, 16, 18. Yaakov and his group left Bethel. Where they reached Ephrathah, Rachel began to give birth, right? To give birth to her baby. She was having a lot of trouble with this delivery. She was in great pain. When her nurse saw this, she said to her, "Don't be afraid, Rachel, you are going to give birth to another son." And Rachel died giving birth to the son. And we already said this or stated this before, that one of the reasons why Rachel died is because it was the power of the tongue. Sometimes we don't realize how much power there is in the tongue. Our fathers knew about that, but in the case of Yaakov and his wife Rachel, he did not know when he opens his mouth about the things that he was going to say. And if you guys remember, if you go back in chapter 29 and 30, it says very clear that Laban's father, which he was the father of Rachel and Leah, and Yaakov decided to leave where they were at. Finally, Laban find out that he left with his wife and kids and everything that he had and chased them. Finally, he caught up to them, and he said to him, "Why did you stole my Elohim, my demons, my idols?" Yaakov, of course, he didn't do that, but I'm sure he told them, "I'm not an idolater like yourself." He knew Laban, and Laban knew Yaakov. They knew each other. But why did he say that to him? To make the long story short, Yaakov told father-in-law that he did not possess or have those idols, but rather, if whoever have the possession of them, look and find out all these tents that I don't have your idols. He didn't realize that when he spoke those words, when he said, and the person that found, the person that this idols has found, let it be dead. And exactly what happened, because Rachel had them the entire time. And he was sitting, by the way, on them. That's another story. The point is that when he spoke those words, exactly what happened a little later when she gave birth to Benjamin. Benoni is the first name, son of my happiness, but Yaakov told her to name him Benjamin, which is the son of my right hand, which is pretty much a foreshadow of Mashiach, Joshua. Now, this is pretty much the backstory of this, and the reason why I'm bringing this to you is to understand what's next. Matthew 2:18, a cry was heard on Ramah, lament and great mourning, and it was Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because there were no more. This is something that when Rachel was buried near Ramah, we see that the reason why she was buried there, because I think it was nowhere to be buried, and that was the only way to put her in there, and the way to another place, but that place was called Ramah. And it's just interesting because the death of a tzaddik, or a righteous person, or a just person, always reflects the future, and it's so true. We're going to see a little later. We see that Rachel's tomb was overseen a little later when in the future generations, like in the exile of the southern kingdom, was exiled to Babylon, and Ramah was one of the ways to Babylon. They actually passed through to the tomb, and I'm sure that this was completely fulfilled, and we'll see a little bit later. But here Matthew talks about the same verse about Rachel, and the reason for it is because I truly believe that Mashiach fulfilled this prophecy, where, remember that he Yahweh by the angel said, take this baby and take him to Egypt. And exactly what it was. Right after that, there was a great, we can say, a law where the herald, the emperor Herod, he made an edict to kill all the babies from 2 years under, and exactly why we're reading this. Now let's read Jeremiah 31:15 that say, Yahweh, a voice is heard from Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel is weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted for her children because they are no more. This is, once again, this is what happened with the southern kingdom, Judah, when they went to exile to Babylon. Now let's jump into another theme, and this is Yosef's in his dreams. He dreamed that his 11 brothers were bound down to him, not knowing that Joseph was going to be a prophet later, just like his father Yaakov. And exactly what he dreamed, he came to be fulfilled a little later. 37 verse 9, he had another dream which he told his father and his brothers. Here it is, I had another dream, and there were the Shemesh, the sun, and the Lila, the moon, the stars bound down to me. But his father rebuked him. What is this dream that you had? Do you really expect that I, your mother, and your brothers will come and bow down to the ground before you? That was the the statement that he actually said to his son. The question to you is, why did he have to say that if he knew, knowing that Yaakov himself was a prophet and Joseph a prophet as well? Why did he have to say that, knowing, I mean, he knew very well that that's a prophecy that was going to be fulfilled. Because remember, Yaakov is a prophet. He was able to see the future just as well as Yaakov. As Joseph. And the reason why he said that these words is because the other 10 children were next to him, in front of him. That's why he had to say that statement. But he fully knew that whatever he was dreaming, it was actually true. Let's continue. Revelation 12:1. Look at this. A lot of people don't understand these verses, but now we're going to go ahead and decode it. A great sign appeared in the heavens, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and her head a crown of 12 stars. And being with the child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. Now, this great sign, a lot of people misunderstand this sign as the Virgin Mary, the Guadalupe, right? The Mexican Virgin, but it's not. 12 verse 5, and she gave birth to a male child who will guide all the nations with a rod of iron. Her children was caught up before a yield Almighty in his throne. Now all this, of course, we can decode it right on the spot, because as we read earlier with Joseph and the dream that he had, and the father, Yaakov, he knew what he was talking about. We knew that this woman is Israel. The child that she's with is Mashiach. We know that. The 11 stars, we know that are the 12 children of Israel, or the 12, if you want to include another one. And the moon and the sun is Rachel and Yaakov. It's very simple mathematics, because we just remember what it was. It will be again Ecclesiastes 1:9. It says very clear, all these things being fulfilled again and again and again. And exactly what we read in the Torah is exactly what Revelation says very clear. So all those things are not really, if you understand Torah, you definitely going to be able to decode a lot of things in the New Testament. Yaakov is the Shemesh, the sun. Rachel is the Yereach, the moon, and the 12 stars are the 12 tribes, are very, very clear in the Torah. And all this is what Joseph saw in his dreams. Book of Yasher 36 verse 15. At that time, the birthright along with the royal offices and the priesthood was taken away from the sons of Reuben, because he had defiled his father's bed. You see that? He had all these attributes, because he was going to be the next Melchizedek, but he wasn't. It was taken from him, and it was split into three. The birthright was given to Joseph. He was the birthright. He was the prophet. The royal office, which is the kingship, is Judah, and the priesthood, it was given to Levi. Why? Because he defiles his father's bed. Once again, we can see pretty much the statement about the priesthood, and let me go back a little bit. The priesthood of Melchizedek have three attributes higher than Levi, which is the Melech, the king, the priest, and the prophet. Those three things were split into three people. Joseph, the prophet, Judah is the Melech, or the king, and Levi is the priest. But later we know that the Torah speaks, and the scripture says very clear that Mashiach came and cover all these three attributes in the line of Melchizedek. Very, very clear. So all these things are very, very clear in the Torah if we know where to look for. 37 verse 2, these are the generations of Yaakov when Yosef was the shepherd of his brother's flock, even though he was still a young man. All this, we can see pretty much that he had the kingship, in other words, because remember, Yaakov knew that Yosef had the esteem, the favor, the chesed of Yahweh, and that's one of the reasons why he gave the cloth. Okay, the cloth is none other than the clothing that was passed on from generation to generation until they were stolen. Okay, and another time we will talk about that. But let me jump a little bit into this subject. When he was in charge of his brothers to oversee them, look at what Yosef did and saw them. 37 verse 12, after this, when his brothers have gone to graze their father's sheep in Shechem. The question is, why did they went there? There was many reasons why, but one of the reasons is this. Remember what the present does, the future would reflect. The king of Jeroboam went to Shechem, and for all Israel have come to proclaim him a king. And the reason why I bring these verses is because this king Jeroboam did the evil in the eyes of Yahweh. He didn't erect one, but he erected two altars to deities, two molten calves. And remember what our forefathers did in Sinai? They erected one altar. Here, this king erected two. Do you imagine how from bad to worse this king turned into? First Kings 12:25, you can read the entire verse. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in the mountains of Ephraim and lived there. Now I keep reading, you will see what I'm talking about is so true. He did the evil in the eyes of Yahweh. And one of the things that the northern kingdom did is that they went strange in the eyes of Yahweh so much. Now, let's continue. Later, we know one of the reasons why Mashiach went to Shomron or Samaria is because this place was also part of Shechem. What was it? Shechem, the northern kingdom, of course. Now, real quick, why is it that Yosef was thrown in the well and later was sold and kidnapped? Those two wordings are applied in the Torah. He was stolen. He was, in other words, kidnapped, and he also was sold. Those two wordings are in the Torah, and it's something that we need to comprehend when we read the Torah and we see actually all these things. Let's continue. He was thrown. What the Torah says, but when he was thrown on the well, we are going to see something very, very strange. This caravan that was approaching, and we know that when they saw this caravan, they thought quickly that they could do some kind of business trying to get rid of his brother. But we have to understand, and the Torah speaks about two kinds of people that were passing by. There were Ishmaelites and there were the Midianites. And which one is the right answer? The right answer are both. Both were the two caravans that were passing through. The first one was the Midianites, where they picked up Yosef, and when they picked up this Yosef, they sold it to the Ishmaelites. The Ishmaelites brought him to Egypt, where they sold him. Now the question is, all this, we have to understand how all this was, but we have to understand who sold who. Midianites picked them up and wanted to take them away, but their brothers, they did not say that it was his brother, but rather a servant. And they did not want to let go of his brother. But once again, they thought twice and they say, you know what, we're just going to sell it to them. And later, the Midianites regret buying this boy, and they sold it. They ended up selling it to the Ishmaelites. That's how the whole thing ended up. 37:28. Then when the Midianites merchants passed by, they pulled Joseph out of the pit. He sold him for 12 shekels of silver. To whom? To the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph to Egypt. Do you see that? That's one of the reasons why it happened, because they regret buying Joseph to his brothers. Let's continue. Look at what it says, 37:31. They took Joseph's robe, killed the ram, and soaked it with the robe in the blood. Now, when they did this, Judah brought it remember, he was kind of like the leader. He brought it to his father, Yaakov, Yisrael, and he said, here, examine it. Okay? Hakarnat. Okay? That's why he said, Hakarnat. Go ahead and examine it. He never said this is Joseph's. And Yaakov is the one who actually understood that this robe was Joseph, and he said a wild beast killed him. But they never claimed that there was a wild beast. And the reason why they never claimed or opened their mouth is because they didn't want it to have more guilt and more curse that would not be reversed. And remember, when they open the mouth, you actually spelling what you are speaking of. That's one of the reasons why we always said we have to be really, really careful when it comes to open our mouth, because we actually can condemn ourselves or do something. Look at what it did. The origin of Yom HaKippurim, the book of Jubel or Jubilees 34:12-18. We're just going to read a little portion. The sons of Jacob slaughtered a kid and dipped it with Joseph's tunic in the blood and sent it to Jacob the father on the 10th date of the 7th month. What is the 7th month and the 10th date? Is Yom HaKippurim. And he mourned all night because he had brought into him a dust, and he became feverishly mournful for his death and said, a vicious beast, you see, he said it. They didn't say it. A vicious beast have devoured Joseph, and all the members of his household mourned with him that day, and they were distressed and wept with him all that day. And keep reading whenever you have time. You'll see that he mourned for an entire year. He knew more or less that he might be devoured by a wild beast, but it wasn't for certain. You know why? Because there was no body. There was no body recovered. There was no, this body was not recovered, a cadaver or anything. It was just a tunic dipped with blood. So he had his we could say his suspicions, but deep down he knew that he might not be dead. He might be alive. He probably thought it was if he wasn't dead, he might be probably in Egypt. You see that? He might be in Egypt, but he didn't know for sure. A little later, we'll talk about that. Now, let's continue. And let me close with this. The Joseph's chronology in Egypt, we're just going to leave it here and we'll continue next week about that. Is 1 year with Potiphar's house, 10 years in prison, 2 years after revealing the dream, but later after it was added another 10 years, okay, and 30 years when he rises as the second of Pharaoh. Now, all this happened in the time of his staying there. Okay? Now, next week we will continue with this, but let me close it down and with this. The power of your tongue can derive your future. Okay? 40 verse 14 of Genesis or Bereshit, but remember me when it goes well for you, and show me kindness, please, and mention me to Pharaoh, so that he might free me from prison. That's what he said. My question to you is that was it Pharaoh the one who was going to free him, or Kadosh Baruch Hu, Yahweh? That's the question that you have to ask. And the simple answer is Yahweh opens the door and closes the door. He can be able to do both, open or close any kind of door. He uses people, yeah. He uses ways how to do these kind of things. But Yahweh ultimate is the one who does all this at the end of the day. Yahweh forgot that. Yahweh opened his mouth and he said, so he might free me from this prison. He forgot that it's Yahweh is the one who opens the door and closes it. And because of that, Yahweh put him 10 more years. Do you imagine that? 10 more years. Supposed to be only 2 years. Imagine 2 years in prison. But he said those words, and those 2 years, and those 10 years became 10 brothers that he had. Remember, he had 10 brothers over there on the other side, not including Benjamin, because he also spoke evil about them, apparently. But once again, those 10 years become added to his bonus. Now look at what it says in the book of Yasher 46 verse 9. And the steward to whom Yahoseph had interpreted his dreams forgot about Yahoseph and did not mention him to the king as he had promised. Because of this was of Yahweh's, you see that, to punish Yahoseph for having trusted in man. We close here, brothers and sisters, and just a reminder that the power of our tongue has a lot to say in our decision making in what we do in life. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah. We'll see you next time. Please subscribe if you have not. And also, please watch out for music that is coming very, very soon. We'll see you next time. Shabbat Shalom.
For more content in production, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Thank you. We'll begin.
Toda Rabba. If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. There's more content in production. Thank you.